Welcome, folks, to Wake Up Call. I'm your host and producer, Al Wilson. It's been a little while since I've done a show. I've been here and there and everywhere and had fires to put out, so to speak. And, anyway, here I be. All right, I want to start out by saying, I like to listen to 790 Talk Radio here. I have to wonder why liberals don't like to use their minds very much, so they have no interest in talk radio. It requires thought. But anyway, I like Rush Limbaugh. I can't say that I believe, like he apparently does, that the Republicans are the, that's not, okay, there we go. I can't say that I believe the Republicans are the answer to everything. I believe both parties are just handed a script to read. They can't even run for office. They can't even buy advertisement through the government-controlled media if there isn't enough dirt on them to know that they can be controlled. So I just want to say, if any time you form an opinion on something, I would like to hear Rush Limbaugh's view on it first or second or whatever. He has a good take on it. I personally, he's still pretty conventional. The conventional wisdom for intelligent people, basically, he calls it real good. Non-thinking, frightened little people that can't stand to think an unpleasant thought, they're just looking for feel-good. They don't think much, they just feel. Fear, hope, love, whatever, that's some of those aren't bad people. They're just dangerous to you and me because they believe lies every time. And they're easily fooled, and they're unprepared. The shock to them will be the greatest when they realize that we're going into a brutal, bone-crunching Nazi dictatorship. See, we brought the Nazis here after World War II, actually a little bit before. What does that suggest? To form the CIA using 10 small, fully intact OSS Nazi spy cells. They were brought here to work for us, but because they could not be trusted, they were limited only to spying on Russia and would have their charter to exist pulled if they did anything else. Kennedy found out they were acting without his knowledge or Congress's knowledge and getting involved in American affairs, which they were specifically forbidden to do. He was going to pull their charter and get rid of the CIA. And they got rid of him first. And George Bush, who arranged for the limo not to have the protective cover over it and to park right next to the manhole where another shooter that others don't know about came out of the manhole, and that's where the .45 slug that found on the bumper by the police came from. But then there was also a shot from the front. One of the two surgeons that saw Kennedy, even though his brain had been removed when he came to the hospital, said that there was a shot fired from the back as well, and there was a small caliber bullet in the neck too. But anyway, so then that earned George Bush Sr. the presidency. And of course, the CIA trusted a Nazi sympathizer because his family had brought spies to America. In fact, the Congress actually seized, I think it was called Union shipping lines that the Bush family owned. They were bringing spies over, and they tried to bribe Smedley Butler, a noted high-level general here in the United States, to lead troops against Washington, D.C. And he snitched on them. Of course, where you don't have a press to tell you, it's just like it's not even happening. You don't even know what's going on at the end of your block unless the media covers it. So it's very important to have a free press. I think the very last free press in the world, totally, completely free press, is Alex Jones. And he doesn't say anything he cannot absolutely prove. They'd love to get him saying something he couldn't prove. In my case, they can't even risk me going into a court because I've got so much dirt on them. They murdered all the grand jurors in a hearing I got going about all the various secret police, both American and Russian, Israeli, all kinds of global secret police got together, and they wanted to shut down my pastor because he had planned to run for president. He was extremely brilliant, top of his class at Stanford University. Dr. Gene Scott of the Los Angeles University Cathedral. He was, I believe, the greatest man of this century, certainly. I loved him dearly. I risked my life on multiple occasions to save his. But the Nazis took a lesbian prostitute, daughter of mob boss, Big Boss Gloria in Los Angeles, and made her pastor of the church, and arranged for Dr. Scott to die. Well, in any case, free country, right? The secret police are free to do whatever they want in America. There is a global power grab going. This is the New World Order that Hitler spoke of in German, and that George Bush spoke of in multiple occasions in English, although his name is I think actually spelled like Bush Bavarian beer. I think it was the correct spelling. I know he belonged to the Tool Society like Hitler did. And you'd say a murder cult and a satanic murder cult, basically. But those are just good qualifications for a president of the strongest country in the world, I guess. So now American soldiers just being used to carry out Nazi wars, not declared by Congress. And George Bush actually gave cities and state governors and whatnot executive powers, which were first implemented only to allow Lincoln to buy, food and whatnot to entertain foreign dignitaries with. Not meant to overrule Congress. So it eliminates the state congresses and everything. And any time, to influence the vote of the politicians, the president just say, I don't need your vote. I'll just go over you, and it can't even be in the press. Point in case, over a year and a half ago, I'm sure this president just took, Rockefeller and Pelosi's orders, which they got probably from third cousins of the Rockefellers in London, who own the Rothschild Money Trust that has the so-called Federal Reserve Bank, which is all the groups of private banks that are authorized to print money, then call it their own. Boy, that's a lot of work. Just run that machine or type it into a computer, and that's the way you make money. And then you lend it back to America. You type it into a computer, then you're permitted to call it your own personal hard-earned cash, then you lend it back to the idiots at ever compounding interest so it can never be paid. So when, by plan and on cue, the currency and the country economic system collapses, you can say you own everything. Pretty bright plan. These aren't stupid people. They're just evil. They're power hungry, crazed. Some of them believe that they are of a lineage of aliens. And whether you believe in aliens or not, these people are kind of nut jobs because they don't value human life at all. In fact, they seem to get a kind of vicarious kicks by watching people suffer and die. And they plan to do that to America this year. Now, why we're on alert right now, I do not know. I have a couple of guesses, but I don't want to speculate at this point. Now, I think a good program to listen to is Coast to Coast AM.com, whatever. They're on at night for several hours. George Norrie, during the week, took over for Art Bell, who I have and always shall have the deepest regard and respect for his work, and the man, too. And but there's a new guy, new kid on the block. Man, is he good stuff. Geez, never before has there been a weekend host like John B. Wells. Holy smokes, that guy is smoking, boy. I tell you what, I think you folks ought to have, if to liven up the weekend, stretch your brain out, get a good laugh, and even a better education. And to talk about things that matter, not just, the weather's nice, and little trivial stuff, and backbiting about the way somebody else dresses or something. Listen to the show. And if you go to coasttocoastam.com, it tells you what radio stations are on all around the country. You can exercise your brain better without the hypnotism of the TV by listening to radio anyway. Radio is a better way of learning. And again, you won't find liberals, I don't guess. I mean, not all liberals are bad. I don't know much still about the politics of Gabby that was shot. I did warn that there are CIA people that had been in the CIA and FBI and whatnot that are now personal high-level bodyguards to politicians, that the CIA was planning to kill a major politician here in didn't know it was going to be in Tucson at that time, but everyone's afraid it might be the person they were supposed to protect, the politician. And so in any case, it turned out to be Ms. Giffords, unfortunately. But, from all reports, she was a person that was not stupid, was not, one of the few liberals who actually used her brain and was very friendly and outgoing, and and went by her own convictions. Freedom of conviction. That's something not to be tolerated by fascists, not even the Jesuit order that's trained in the art of warfare. Pedophilia, murder, arson, torture, all kinds of things. The art of warfare is what is taught to the Jesuit order. I'm told it is a Jesuit order, actually one of the rare ones of females, that's doing the warfare business of killing the creme de creme of American students, young men who are at the top of their class in grades, who are popular, head of the student body, etc. They're leaders of men, and excelling in sports, all the creme de creme that could at some point be non-conspiratorial, honest, pro-American politicians at some point. So they're making sure that there's just Jesuits to pick from. When George Bush Sr. met in interlocking submarines under the polar cap there at the North Pole before it melted many years ago with the Pope, John Paul II, who was actually the Nazi war criminal that devised cyanide gas for the Nazis. And by the way, the one that just so-called died, whether he really did or not, you never know for sure the way things go these days, was his handler. So he too was a Nazi. But so what? Karl Rove, his dad was a governor of a Nazi state. Yeah, he says that they're going to do it the same way they did it in Nazi Germany. Burn the Reichstag? Well, the Twin Towers came down. Blame it on terrorists? Fine. But you know what? All the special forces that the Supreme Court had ruled and ratified by the World Court, the Nisara Agreement, to make everybody out of debt. No more federal taxes, because all it paid didn't pay an ounce of the deficit, didn't do anything. It was all profit going to the banks in London under the Rothschild Money Trust, the private banks called Federal Reserve. That was another thing that got Kennedy killed. He was going to make Federal Reserve actually federal and not pay interest on the money, just create it. That was the whole purpose of a Federal Reserve. Hitler started to do that, realizing that it worked, and so the big boys, he fell out of graces, and they arranged for him to go the way of the whatever. But by the way, there's a hole in the sun about 25, or is it closer to a third of the sun now? Some phenomena they'd never seen before, blowing by some huge solar storms that have narrowly missed us. Even though the sun hasn't been doing coronal mass ejections, this dark spot is blowing out some kind of very hazardous material. So I would say, in order